which has led to a decline in living conditions and access to essential services. This blockade, which has been in effect for 17 years, has contributed to the erosion of the Christian community in Gaza through illness, isolation, and tragically also in death. Despite efforts by Israel and its allies to portray the genocide as part of the war on terror, the truth is straightforward. There's no genuine conflict. Rather, it's just a settler colonial agenda aiming to occupy and eliminate anyone, regardless of their religion, hindering their pursuit of ethnically cleansing out not just Palestine, but a significant portion of all of the Middle East. The toll on the Christian community in Gaza has been devastating. As of February 19th, at least 30 members have been killed. And that may not seem a lot, but to put it in perspective, before the genocide started, there was only 1,000 Christians that were living there. On October 19th, Israel bombed the oldest church in Gaza, killing at least 18 people. And despite our media and Israeli army's statement saying that the church was not the target of the attack, every Palestinian Christian in Gaza says differently. What is perhaps most concerning is the lack of response from leaders of Christian majority countries who have remained largely silent on the plight of their fellow believers in Gaza. This silence underscores a troubling pattern of Western Christian support of Israel, despite its actions that threaten the very Christian presence in what they consider the Holy Land. Pope Francis has repeatedly used the term terrorism to describe Israeli actions in Gaza, including the killing of unarmed civilians taking shelter in churches. In his Christmas Day appeal, the Pope called for an end to the military operations with their appealing harvest of innocent civilian victims. The persecutions of Christians in Palestine is not a new phenomenon, but has deep historical roots dating all the way back to the Nakba of 1948. Despite facing the ongoing occupation, both Muslim and Christian Palestinians continue to demonstrate resilience and hope in the face of adversity, embodying the spirit of perseverance that has defined their struggle for generations. Affecting us directly here in the US, every single year, the US government writes Israel a blank check for at least $3.8 billion to fund Israel's violence against the Palestinian people. And in this recent genocide, we've only seen those numbers increase. The Israeli military uses our tax dollars to kill Palestinian people, destroy their homes, steal their land, all of which are in violation of the US laws that we claim to abide by. In Mobile, Alabama alone, $2,835,989 is sent to Israel's weapons. And that funding instead could have been used to, and which I calculated, 337 households could have public housing for a year. 986 children could receive free or low-cost health care. 30 elementary school teachers could be paid. 8,073 households could have solar electricity produced for an entire year. And 75 students could have their loan debt just completely canceled. It is also important for me to note that some of the strongest support for the Palestinian liberation movement came from Black leaders during the radical upsurge of the 1960s and the 70s, such as with Malcolm X and his writings Zionist Logic, and also in meeting with the Palestinian Liberation Organization, also with Huey Newton and the Black Panther Party and all of their efforts, and the list goes on and on. Because we saw the parallels between the racial profiling here, the incarceration of our youth, the white-only roads and neighborhoods and schools that we've seen too often here in the South. This shared experience of resistance between Black national oppression and the European colonialism allowed us to understand that apartheid is apartheid, no matter where it's coming from. In order to end the oppression of the people in the US, you must work for an end of imperialism all over the world. And right now, Palestine is just at the forefront of that worldwide confrontation. One of my most favorite signs that I saw right after Trayvon Martin was murdered and Zimmerman was acquitted was from a Palestinian, and it said, "Palestinians stand with those who mourn Trayvon Martin's death because we know what it feels like to lose loved ones and to watch murderers evade justice." So to those here today, I implore you to not turn away from the horrific images that you see that our representatives right here in this city have helped create. Bearing witness is an act of community care. They are depending on us to look away. Don't turn away. We have to witness the truth so that we may tell the truth. Let every picture, every video fill your body with a hunger for justice, and then demand it of those right on Government Street that claim to represent us. When you think you have hit your capacity for witnessing and sharing, ask yourself, is it your capacity that you've hit, or are you just finally at the edge of your comfort zone? True solidarity requires that we sacrifice the right to comfort that has become such a cornerstone of American individualism and a central tenet of white Christian supremacy. If you've experienced discomfort, it doesn't mean you should stop. It means that you're finally getting started. It may be 100 years later, but I know the US will apologize for the Palestinian genocide. They may even dedicate a day to it, because that's what this country has always done. And while apologizing, they will remind us that they are the good, peaceful people now, and that it was just their bad ancestors that committed this atrocity. The transatlantic slave trade, the massacre of Native Americans, the hundreds of thousands murdered in Afghanistan, they always apologize after every single war crime while continuing to wave this flag of peace. Don't let them forget. We cannot let them whitewash this part of history. As Israelis take over the homes of the indigenous people of Palestine, aided by our tax dollars, as my aunt once told me, we will be the leak in the ceiling that bursts all the pipes. We will not let them forget that that home is colonized. There's no peace on stolen land. The only way we can survive and sustainably resist oppression is by being rooted in community. Palestinians, as well as other communities of resistance, have shown us that even under crippling oppression, we are capable of experiencing immense happiness if we fight back as a collective. There are devastating consequences for all of us the longer we pretend that we're not all connected. The Palestinian struggle is the Black struggle. It is the indigenous struggle. It is the queer struggle. It is the motherhood struggle. Isolation drives despair and keeps us stuck. That is how they win. This is the moment to find your people, process in community, then get organized and mobilized. They want you to go to a rally or two in Mardi Gras Park or to post memes about Palestine on Instagram. What they don't want is for you to join a revolutionary organization and devote a significant portion of your life to organizing against white Christian supremacy, which is the driving force behind the Palestinian genocide. I'm happy to talk with you about any of the organizations I work with, but I want to make sure that no one leaves here today without taking the next step of connecting with me in the fight for our collective liberation. And then I'm happy to answer any questions people have. Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. Take a breath and just
Thank you.
So as someone, where do you want to point us to? As someone that has some time but not, I mean, that can write or do whatever, but I want to help. I don't want to be in charge. So,
Well, I wanted to help and not be in charge, and then I ended up here today. Right now, something that we have been working on, specifically in Mobile for the past month, is that we wrote a ceasefire resolution. This was the 4th week we have tried to be added to the agenda for City Council, and every week they've told us that it doesn't pertain to city business, and so they're not going to allow us to even present it. And the argument that we're trying to present is that it became city business when our mayor, first off, participated in the I Stand With Israel march that was held at Cottage Hill Baptist Church. On October 7th, he also made this great proclamation to the media about how we are standing with Israel and supporting because most people don't even realize that we have a sister city in Israel. And so he made this great proclamation about our support of Israel. So that opened it up that this was city business. And so they're just not allowing the resistance or the other side of that to have a voice. So we have been reaching out every 4 weeks, applying for city council. Finally, we talked to, I guess it's been about 4 days now, received a message from the city council attorneys that they're standing firm in their decision and that we're just wasting our time. They're not going to allow us to speak. So we haven't publicly announced this yet, but not this coming Tuesday, but the next Tuesday for the city council meeting, we're actually having a protest outside of the city council meeting. So if anyone is available to attend that, it's not in a few days, but the following Tuesday. I also can share, like, Dream Defenders is the group that I organize with locally. And so we have all of that on our Instagram account as well. And so to have the flyers and the times on there. We are also, even though they've told us that they're just not going to allow us, we're still doing power hours. We do them twice a week where we are like designating a certain amount of time where we are calling the city council members, we are sending them emails and still putting that pressure on them. We are actually starting a campaign this week also where we've gotten a lot of national attention because apparently Mobile is the first city in the entire country that has not allowed their citizens to even present the resolution. So it's not that they're denying it, they just won't allow us to present it. So there are a lot of other organizers that we have an organized campaign for next week on social media. And so we're encouraging everyone to just share those posts that we're sharing. But yeah, so that's right now, like locally what's happening. We have also teamed up with Foley and we're helping them create a ceasefire resolution as well. And so on the 28th, which I know is also an event y'all have here, but if anyone wants to go over to Foley, there's also a rally at 1 p.m. At Foley downtown to help with their resolution. But right now we feel we're putting a lot of focus on the ceasefire resolution. I'm going to be completely honest, not because we think it's going to get passed in Mobile, but I think for me selfishly, I wanted to be able to tell my daughter that like this is what I did. And I think that like the South specifically has such this negative representation of that we don't do anything, we're all racist, we're all like whatever. And so I feel like it would be incredible to be able to say that like no, while all this was happening, there was a group of people in Mobile that were fighting, that were on the right side of this. So selfishly, that's a big part of my reason for wanting to do it.
What did you say? Dreamers?
Dream Defenders. The Instagram account is just Dream Defenders Mobile. But I can share that with people too afterwards.
Julie, it's written.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, the handle is Dream Defenders Mobile.
Yeah. I was just, one of the things that's happening, of course, most of us here are related to white Christians, and some of our relatives are, you know, Christian nationalists or whatever. And one of the things that, like in Stimson's case, I know he's very religious, very Christian, is support of Israel, because like my cousin had sent out a text and it was like, oh, they're getting ready to build the third temple in Israel.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons, is because they think that Jesus will come back when that third temple is built.
I think it's really hard to argue with stupidity, but please don't record that part. I think like a big part of my passion is specifically like in Black churches, like that is such a huge part of that rhetoric, and I feel that like we have lost the radicalness like within our communities. And a lot of it is just honestly because of ignorance, of not understanding that this Israel that everyone is talking about, it didn't even exist until 1948. So there's no, unless you're saying that your Bible was created after 1948, like you're not even talking about the same place. And so I think that was such an eye-opening thing for me to realize that people didn't even know that. And so I think just starting at that foundation of getting people to understand that this is not the same place. Like the place that Jesus was born, like that was Palestine. Like it was not Israel. And so yeah, and then obviously, I mean, there are people that are just not gonna want to like understand that, but it's just, it's a fact that it didn't exist.
And they took they just took it because their Bible, whoever was in charge at that time, said, okay, this is the land, but their Bible says so, so they get it.
I mean, there's
why
also
would they
like,
go to an
it was funny because
An
my
island
mom and I
somewhere.
were talking on the way here about like my mom is not quite as radical as I am. She's getting there, and so I'm trying, y'all. But we were having a conversation about like the responses to people when they say things about the Holocaust, and like because that's another big argument within like Christian communities about them like deserving this land, and like that has just always been a mind-boggling thing to me because I feel that people that are victims of a genocide should understand more than anyone else that this is not the way to do it. To
Right.
take someone else's land and to conquer it as your own and to kill all of those people. And so I think both of those arguments are connected.
I mean,
And we have-
Jewish, as the elephant in the room here is have you talked to any people of the Jewish community? Because I have a few Jewish friends and I've seen one of them say raise Gaza, and it's like, you know, I'm kind of torn because a lot of people don't think about how many people 30,000 people are. 30,000 people is a lot of people. Mobile's only 500,000. 30,000 people is a lot of big dinner. So that loss of life is unacceptable. And I said it from the get-go. Israel is not a place to be messed with. They have weapons and they're good with them. They have weapons that the U.S. made and they're very good with them. They showed us that in previous wars. Israel's not a pushover. What happened at the music concert, they still have hostages. I mean, that's all wrong. So for a Jewish person to say, raise Gaza, you know, as the Holocaust survivor, have you talked to any Jewish people about any of this? What's the relationship there right now? What's the feelings?
Well, I think there's a difference. Do I talk to Zionist Jews? No, not ever. That's not like somewhere that I want to put my energy. But actually within Dream Defenders, one of our major leaders is an anti-Zionist Jew, and I think the conversation that I try to mostly have with Jewish people is realizing like how much this actually affects them and how they've allowed white Christian supremacy to co-opt their entire religion.
Yeah.
Because like this coming of Christ and stuff, for that to happen, they all have to die.
It's almost,
Like-
it's almost like the Crusades, you know, you have
Yeah.
Christians, you have Jewish and Muslims all fighting for, you know, it's the Crusades. History is repeating itself and it's just in a different way and tragic still.
I think what's hard with it is the only difference I feel with it not being the Crusades is because prior to Israel's intervention, like Muslim, Christians, and Jews all lived in Palestine peacefully. Like there wasn't an issue. Like everyone practiced their faith. There was nothing. It wasn't until Zionism was introduced in Palestine that it became this big issue.
Explain to me Zionism. What does that mean?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the big difference?
Okay, well, when I made the distinction between like Zionist Jews and anti-Zionist Jews, there are people, and that's why I don't like to lump them all together. Like there are people within the Jewish community that recognize exactly what this is. That like Zionism really is just another way of saying white Christian supremacy,
Like
or
there's-
saying
there's
white
the
Christian
New Testament.
nationalism.
Right.
No, it's just a political ideology that has like lumped itself on to Judaism and saying that that's the reason they have this ideology. Like it is exactly word for word the exact same thing as white Christian nationalism,
Yeah.
but they're trying to spin it differently and say it's like in support of Jewish people, and so that's why it's Zionism.
Gotcha.
But like thankfully a lot of Jewish people are realizing that they're honestly being used as pawns, like in this. This is just like a white Christian supremacist battle that they're gonna lose on at the end, because for that prophecy that you mentioned to come true, Jews can't exist. Like they're going to be completely wiped out. It's only Christians that will remain.
Sounds like an oxymoron, or Jews for Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, interesting, the Jews for Jesus thing is those are all like what people don't realize, like the main like financial supporters for like Christian Zionism, they're all right-wing evangelicals in the US. They're Christians. They're not even Jews.
Right.
Like that's who is sending all of this money, and they're just doing it under this like guise of like Judaism, but it's not. It's like evangelical Christians.
Wow.
That's one of the reasons that somewhere in the Bible it says something about when all the trees are gone. That's why so many are not for saving the planet. Because when
Yeah.
it's gone, then
Jesus comes back. Yeah.
I mean, is that not crazy? Yes.
I just want to explain one area in Mobile about what she said about the sister city. And majority of you, I hope you know, but I know you don't. It's called the city of Ariel. And the city of Ariel, which we are sister city in Mobile, it's set on the West Bank in the Palestinian territory. So according to the United Nations, it's an illegal settlement, okay? So according to the laws of United Nations, and correct me if I'm wrong, so it is an occupied land. So we are so proud in Mobile to be part of an occupied city that we are a sister city over there. So if you just want to make sure to understand some of the ignorance that we have with the political leaders in the city council, that they make you believe we have a sister city in Israel. No, it's not in Israel. It's in the West Bank, and it is in an occupied territory, and that's where we are. And the city of Mobile hosted the mayor of Ariel several times in the city of Mobile, okay, paying by your tax money.
Right.
And just to let you know. And the other thing I just wanna, when we're talking about conservative Christians, one of the things really drives me crazy when you have the daughter of Donald Trump, which she denounced Jesus Christ and become Jewish. Because if you are a Jewish person, you don't believe in the existence of Jesus Christ. So I just want to bring this up just to let you know, we don't think about nationalism. We think about what's our benefits. But everybody will carry the name of Christ just to cover what's going to happen in Palestine or Israel as a conflict. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
very much.
Okay, Sean.
I've been intimately involved in this because when I was a kid, my aunt worked for the United Nations, and this would have been in the 1960s. And regularly during meals, she would be called, and they had an emergency Social Security Council meeting because of violations by Israel. So this was in the 60s. And during so that's my personal view on it. And so I've been very involved in it and have read, and not only do I watch what people say here, but I read European newspapers and all. So one thing we're not aware of is that because, so this is a country of 9 million people. This is the population of New York City, okay? Now, these 9 million people are controlling what we hear and see, okay? CNN, when they do a news story on anything that goes on there, it has to be sent to Israel and reviewed by them, okay? Number one. Number two, we have to be amused by the fact that all of a sudden people are so interested in putting TikTok out of business.
Yes.
TikTok is one of those pseudo news things where we actually see and hear what's going on.
Yeah.
Guess who is paying tons of money to people in Washington
AIPAC.
to kill? Okay.
Yes.
So, since you're talking about AIPAC, AIPAC will spend $100 million this year influencing elections around the country. Now, besides that, Netanyahu has come up with a new ministry. It's going to be called the Information Ministry. And they will be spending $2 or $3 billion because they're going to make sure that anytime anybody says anything bad about Israel anywhere in the world, because they've already dealt with the Europeans, where they actually there's a law that was passed by Europe saying that anytime you say something bad about Israel, you're being anti-Semite. That was according like that. Now, another whole side to this. When you see how precise Iran can send 300 weapons of mass destruction into Israel and only wound a 7-year-old girl, what does that tell you about how incredibly advanced Iran is? Okay, so let's not play games. Iran is not Iraq and is not Afghanistan. If Iran wants to kill a lot of Israeli people, all they got to do is like this. If you have any doubt about precision, Iran decided that they got mad at the Saudis, what, 2-3 years ago? They went in there and wiped out a whole bunch of refineries without any problems. Yeah, number one. Number two, Israel has been using AI to destroy Gaza. Okay? Just to see how meticulously they've gone from neighborhood to neighborhood and wiped out people. One of the AI programs that they use is called When My Father Comes Home. Have you heard about that? So, what they do is, if they're tracking with visual, etc. Anyways, this is an AI program. And they wait until the person that they're looking for goes into a building. And then they blow up the whole building. They've got an excuse now, come on now. Whoever they suspected was walking in that building, and they will destroy that building and the one next to it and the one next to it. If you look at the pictures from satellite, the precision with which they have completely annihilated Gaza is shocking. Now, the last time we've had this kind of intelligence used against someone was the Nazis. The Nazis went and hired IBM to make a meticulous genocide of the Jewish people.
I'm really glad that you brought up the AI technology because I want to make this connection to things that are happening here. Like all over New Orleans, their new city approved cameras for like the French Quarter and for Bourbon Street, like that whole area, like that technology was bought by the IOF. So it is that same exact technology that is
Wow.
being used here to surveil our people, and all that information is also being sent back to Israel. And then we saw like in New York, like all the stops that happened, like on the subway where they started having checkpoints to get into the subways in New York. So everything that starts there, it ends up bringing its way back here. Our police are trained by the IOF. All these cop cities, that's where they're getting their training from. And we have 2 cop cities, just a tiny little town like Mobile. We have 2, municipal safety complexes are what they're calling them, but they're cop cities, like here in Mobile.
The malware that was put on Apple phones that spied on all of the journalists around the world as well as our own politicians, the company is subsidized by the Israeli government. It was blacklisted up until recently. And of course, they went to Congress and spent about $20 million buying out politicians to see if they could get off the blacklist. And of course, the main reason they were giving was that they needed to make sure that that malware could be used in Gaza and in Israel to protect Israel.
National security, yeah.
The starvation is what's awful there. It's
Yes.
just, I mean, besides the bombing, but
It's
just seeing those
intentional,
children.
because
It is intentional.
it
It's
has
just
to be. They
inhumane,
want
and
the
why
land.
anybody's putting up with that. I don't understand. All right, do we have any other?
Yes.
Yes, Betty.
I just want to thank you very much. It's a much needed discussion, and I think it's quite obvious that once isn't going to be enough. So let's keep talking about it, whether in this forum on Sunday or another, and keep our eyes open and our ears and hearts open.
And write letters to at least our congressman if you don't do
But I think
Mobile,
we
'cause
need to
our
keep
state's
the
not gonna
topic
listen, our city won't
discussed.
listen, so maybe some congressmen,
Just
and
be
go to the,
careful.
and
They're
vote,
watching.
and just vote.
I mean, I'm joking, but they are watching.
We know.
My mom knows as
I bet
someone
you are aware.
who gets stopped at the airport every single time we travel. I know.
Oh, my.
They're
Yeah.
watching.
With my kid. Yeah.
Is there a Palestinian community here in Mobile? Are there Palestinians here in Mobile?
Yeah. Tony.
Together, I mean, how can we
Support their.
support them or?
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, me? I don't want to take the spotlight from this
I
great,
don't want this
amazing
one.
person. She is such a, I mean, she does more for the Palestinian community in Mobile than their own self. You know, you have to understand, she is absolutely an amazing person. And, I mean, the way that she carry herself, and she's very quiet. I wish I can have that kind of, I'm very loud, and I mean, let me just let you know, I want to talk to the person who mentioned about AIPAC. I mean, you have to understand Mobile had the president of AIPAC in Mobile from 1984 until 1991. And his name is, in front of you, Mayor Mitchell, which is, everybody knows who is Mayor Mitchell is. And he's such a wonderful person. I used to have a building downtown, it's called the Van Antwerp Building, and I used to have a restaurant downstairs. And he asked me one time, they came into the restaurant, he asked me, where are you from? So as a Palestinians, we always say, we're from Jerusalem. So once he found out I'm from Jerusalem, I had so much support from the Jewish community. He brought in the consulate from Atlanta to come to the restaurant. And for 2 years, my business was booming. All the Jewish people in Mobile, they came into my restaurants and we did great. And once the consulate came in, he asked me in Hebrew, Me'efa ata? So I told him the name of my city, Shechem, which is Naples. After that, he told him, I'm a Palestinian. I never see a single Jewish person comes into my restaurant. So just another story. But you know, we are not against Judaism. We are against what we call Zionism.
Right.
That's what it is. I mean, from my own town, we have a whole community of Jewish people who live in the Mount of Zion, in top of my city. And these Jewish people, they speak Arabic, and they practice the Judaism, and they're living with peace with us for generations. And they are the actual founder for the Judaism religion. And they believe the temple should be in that area instead of Jerusalem. So there's so much conflicts that you don't see, or so much information you don't see on a day-to-day information. The Palestinian community is here. You have doctors, you have engineers, you have a lot of gas stations. You know. We have restaurants, we have furniture stores. You know, we have
Usually well run.
Huh?
Well run.
And if you have a Palestinian neighbor, trust me, you'll have the nicest landscaping around and very friendly. We are very loving people. I mean, you're not gonna sit down and say, "Oh, here's Tony walking in with a big beard. He's gonna bomb my my neighborhood." And that's one thing that I went through when I ran for a city council in Mobile in 2021.
Oh,
We do everything we can to be part of the community. But sometimes if you are not accepted, same like the Jewish people in Mobile, I have a gentleman by the name Olinsky, which I know you know him if you live in Mobile for a long time. They told me, Tony, we and the black people could not enter this building until 1961. So I think as a Palestinian, I feel better because we can go anywhere. Okay.
In 1981, Jews were not allowed at the country club. Okay, this was in 1981. I was shocked when I learned that.
But you see, we still contribute in the community. Do we have an organization? A lot of Palestinians really very skeptical about having organizations because there is so much pressure. We come here, we need to live in the community, and there is some Christian Palestinians that live here also, and we just want to live, because we are tired. I myself, born and raised in Kuwait, moved from Kuwait to China. From China, I went to Hong Kong. From Hong Kong, I went to England. From England, I came to the United States. So, and I have sisters in Canada, Dubai, Jordan. So when the whole family will be separated, you won't have unity. And that's what's happening right now in Gaza. You're talking about 37,000 people are slaughtered. That's the size of the city of Pritchard. So imagine if you are walking in Pritchard right now, and that's the population of Pritchard, if you know it, and the whole entire city is gone. So I know Mayor Stimson, sometimes he doesn't want Pritchard, but beside the point. We talk about 14 kilometer by 5 kilometers. That's the whole entire area. 14 by 5. And you have 2.2 million people living over there. They could not find any way to get rid of them. So this is the only way. And the silence between all the Arab community, Arab leadership, and the silence between all the Muslim countries because they are afraid to make any movement, and that's how strong Israel is. Not because, you know, they are blessed by God. I mean, God blessed the United States, and it was in its boom prior 1948. Okay.
They got us. Just
But you have, I mean, if you have organization, they control the media, they control the money, they control universities,
University.
they control everything. So we are not against them. I know they had to do that to be accepted in this community. And that's good for them, whatever they did, this is wonderful, but we are not gonna be the same victim. What Hitler did to them in Germany is being practiced on us. I mean, before they sell any weapon, they come and they practice on the Palestinian people. This morning, 132 people died. Did you hear about them? No.
Yeah.
You know, just this morning, 7 people died in the West Bank. It's not in Gaza. Did you hear about them? No. But we're gonna hear about so many different stories. But the media right now in control. I mean, my Facebook is canceled 3 times. You know, we did not get in touch for like 2
I
months.
know.
All what I put is, I mean, I just want people to see. And
So, on the radio in Mobile, 106.5, which I listen to religiously, by the way, they are advertising and asking for money to help Israel. Because Israel is in conflict and there's people that are needing money for food and whatnot. Okay, this is in Mobile, Alabama. That's what we are all listening to. And we won't even talk about what's going on in Mississippi with the American Family Radio. They have been, there's the governor of the state of New York on October 8th was in Israel. And she had been invited by a nonprofit that collects over $200 million a year to help settlers in occupied territory. And of course, I have a strange way of thinking. Settler? Settlements? What does that mean in English? If you're a settler, what are you settling on? And what are settlements? These are not towns, these are, so there's something in my mind that every time I hear that word, and I kind of cringe, going, okay, wait a minute. In 2024, there's settlers in Israel. How does that work?
we are the only country that's still occupied, you know, in the whole entire world, is the Palestinian people. My own village, which is called Burin, population of 2,500. Now the American embassy is given free visas to every Palestinian just to come to the United States, just to clear that city, that little village. Why? Because there's 4 settlements around that village. And nobody wanna leave. I mean, I don't wanna come to the United States if I have a nice life. I don't wanna, I mean, we have a nice home, we have a piece of land, we have everything. Nobody wanna leave. I mean, look at all the Gazans right now. They don't wanna leave. They wanna stay because they learned in 1948 when everybody left their homes. In 1948, and they still, why you think all the Palestinians, they carry that key in their hand when they talk? Because they left, and the Arab countries tell them, you're leaving for 2 weeks, and you're coming back, like a tornado, you know? You're leaving for 2 weeks, and you're coming back. And everybody still have that key in their hand, okay? Believe of the right of return. But the most devastating thing right now, even the aid, UNESCO, not UNESCO, I'm sorry, UNRWA is the only United Nations organization.
And we've defunded them.
Yeah, that they wanna, I mean, Kushner is doing everything that he can to get rid of one organization that helped all the refugees in Gaza and Palestine. You know, and what else they gonna do for 17 years? If I put you in your house for 17 years, what would you be? A terrorist or a freedom fighter? That's how you're gonna define it. If I'm not gonna let you leave the 14 kilometers by 5 kilometers for 17 years, what would you do? You're gonna explode. What they did on October the 7th, is it wrong? 100%. 100%. But they have to find a way for these people to live. And what is it? we are human beings, we're not animals. We are slaughtered like animals every day in the name of God. That's the problem.
Yeah.
The
All right, thank you. We're gonna have to, we have our, children's, caretakers that
Okay,
need
one last
to
comment.
get loose.
So Israel has a president. We're probably not, most people aren't familiar with it because we always hear about Bibi Netanyahu. He's the prime minister. They actually have a president. About 6 years ago, he made a big speech. And the summary of the speech was the following. Because of the situation that's been going on in Israel, he felt that Israel was rotting, their soul was rotting from the inside. Okay, that was the president of Israel talking about what was going on in this country.
I'm happy to talk to anybody afterwards, and like I create a lot of content and do workshops and stuff on this regularly.
Yeah,
So-
thank
Great
you,
talk.
thank you.